Hi everybody, Dan Davies here, the independent conservative candidate for Peace River North and Northern Rockies. And I'm here in Northern Rockies, town of Fort Nelson, sitting with the former mayor, local businessman, Gary Foster. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Dan. So Dan, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was, your work in the legislature to try to help get rail service to Fort Nelson. And rail service, as you know, and as you've spoken to many of the ministers in the government, is absolutely crucial to Fort Nelson. We need efficient rail service into and out of the Northern Rockies here to move goods and services efficiently so that we can have viable industry in Fort Nelson, whether that's oil and gas or whether it's forestry or even mining from the Yukon, where they extract the minerals, concentrate it, and ship it out by rail to be refined. I think Fort Nelson can be a real hub for rail service, and your work in the legislature has really promoted this. And I'm looking forward to having a change of government in Victoria personally. And I think, with your experience in the legislature, I think you're the guy that can push this forward.
Well, no, and I appreciate that. And obviously this has been, Fort Nelson has been a priority of mine since I got elected. From opening up my office here, from coming up here regularly. I mean, I'm up here, I don't know, about every 6 weeks, 2 months, constantly engaging with people, engaging with industry. Even when I'm in Calgary or if I'm in Victoria or Vancouver, talking to folks that are in industry. And I hear a lot of that same stuff. I mean, there's so much potential here, with the Horn River gas, with the Liard, the mining potential in the north, the forestry, basically an untouched fiber supply here. The potential is unbelievable here. And so much of that, I truly believe relies on that rail. We're not going to be trucking, all of this stuff to the south to get refined. And I think that's important as well. The rail line isn't for a raw log export, right? It's for lumber, it's for OSB or pellets or whatever, whatever that might be. And I think that's really important to stress that. And I've met with CN Rail, I've met with some industry players. I've talked to the federal government. There is an appetite, but we haven't got that from the provincial government, and that's what I need to continue to work on to make sure that we do see the rail line upgraded up here to Fort Nelson. I mean, you've been here a long time. You've seen how the economy has gone. What's your feeling now? You obviously talk to lots of people that come here to town. Paramount's doing a lot of work up here. What's your thoughts? What's your feeling about the future of Fort Nelson?
Well, I've always been optimistic about the future of Fort Nelson, and you're right. The Horn River Basin, at one time they said that the gas in the Horn River Basin was enough to supply all the natural gas needs for Canada for 100 years. So this just gives you an idea of the scale of that reserve. We have 3 million cubic meters of wood to be harvested here, yet we sit here without a resource industry. And I lay the blame at the feet of the NDP government. I think they failed to grasp what a resource this is and how beneficial this can be for the whole province. And I remember you going to Ravi Kahlon and other ministers, trying to get the NDP to see the wisdom of putting in just a small number of dollars into our rail system so that we can feed this industry. We can get it up, we can prime the pump, as they said. And you're right, we don't want raw log exports. You've said this many, many times, I've said it. We're not here to simply send out our resources. We want to do the work here. We want to have the finished product here. We want to have the good paying jobs here for the people of the Northern Rockies.
Yeah, and we hear a lot about the appurtency that was removed. And of course, that is basically where, the community owns the wood. That the community has the right to have, within a certain radius, that wood needs to be, either cut or produced into, that value add needs to happen locally. And I really believe that we need to get back to some type of model like that, to where, we've seen a lot of our small communities having huge issues right now and mills shutting down because you've got the big players now just wanting the wood to be shipped out, brought to the big super mills, whether that's in Prince George or Fort St. John now is even, facing a similar thing with the sawmill there. So it is, like I say, I think there's a great opportunity for forestry here. We just need to work on some policy, some legislation. The gas, we've got the Heisla doing their Cedar LNG, Canada, LNG Canada's online. The wood fiber is been approved. We've got the one just north of Prince Rupert, Kitsalem. The gas is going to be needed, right?
Yes.
And I think sooner than later is what I'm hoping for. So.
Yes, and and this is part of having your primary industry here in Fort Nelson, where we extract the gas, we do the drilling, we do the seismic work, we do all those things that just feeds into the economy. And one of the things I noticed was the previous government, the NDP government, seems to have been feeding into urban solutions and not looking after rural British Columbia. And I know Mike Bernier, also of the South Piece, have worked tirelessly in the legislature to draw attention to rural BC and the benefits that rural BC can bring to the province as a whole.
Well, this is my community. This is my region. I mean, I'm born in Fort St. John, always had a connection to Fort Nelson. And I think obviously the strength of us all being strong is good for the entire region. I just want to really switch and just being aware of time. And, crime is a big issue here right now. I think that, we've been seeing, my goodness, this is Fort Nelson. We're seeing, arsons, we're seeing drive-by shootings. What are you hearing on the streets? Obviously people are very concerned. What are you hearing out there?
Not only are they concerned, but they're afraid. And, we've had 30 arsons, arsons or suspicious fires this year alone. And we're 10 months into the year. There will probably be more. The RCMP just arrested somebody with drugs and guns. This never happened before, and this is just getting worse. The other thing I want to mention is the experience in dealing with the legislature, your experience in the community, your experience coming up here for years, meeting with people in the community, and going back to the legislature and understanding how government works and how you can use government to benefit the people of the Northern Rockies, I think is absolutely crucial. And I think this is why you make a better candidate than any of the options, is your experience and your dedication to the people of the Northern Rockies.
Yeah, and that's something I've certainly pride myself on, and connections that I've made. I've spoken one-on-one with Minister Farnworth, the Public Safety Solicitor General. He's very aware of the situation here in Fort Nelson, and I know that there's been lots of resources. The RCMP have brought lots of resources into town, but a lot of it also comes down to the consequences. Our justice system is that revolving door of justice, and that is certainly a focus that I'm going to be looking at, is how do we start giving the tools back to the justice system so that it is in fact a justice system. And that's one of the focuses that I'm going to be looking at as well, and continue making sure the resources are here, right? So we need, one of my pieces of my platform is jail time for drug crime, and that's looking at the drug dealers, that's looking at the people that are bringing this stuff in, because with that comes in, comes the gang issues and everything else, which I think, and what I'm hearing is a lot of what's happening here in Fort Nelson, which is just crazy for a peaceful little town like Fort Nelson for years, right?
It is. It's crazy what's happening here, and it's a shame that we don't have any arrests or convictions yet for some of these crimes, serious crimes. Arson is a serious business. People can lose their lives over this, and innocent people can lose their lives. And we do need to have a justice system that addresses this. And you remember the old saying that soft judges make for hardened criminals. It seems to be happening now, that we don't seem to get the sentences we need for people who commit crimes. And so once again, I think you understand this, and you've got the tools and the experience to bring this forward to the legislature and to help get solutions for these problems.
And my final topic is fixing Northern Health. My goodness, like we've got, emergency closure here again just happened in Fort Nelson Hospital. It's been unfortunately, it's almost become a regular thing now, and it's new. This is new in the last couple of years. Fort St. John, similar. People must be talking. I mean, people have been talking for years now about the issues with Northern Health. What are the biggest issues that you're hearing? I'm sure they're the same ones I'm hearing, but you're on the ground here. What are you hearing?
One of the most important things in Fort Nelson is that when people leave the community to get medical care, once that medical care is done, they're kicked out on the curb. And you can find your own way back to Prince George. When you look at people who are on fixed income or seniors who don't have a lot of disposable income, say they go to Prince George for hip replacement, or they go for an operation, or they even have to go for chemotherapy. Once that chemotherapy is done, they're on their own. They have to travel back, and people are not going through with the medical treatments they need because they cannot afford the transportation. I think this is one of the key issues. Dan, we've talked about this before. We're never going to do brain surgery in Fort Nelson. We need to travel out for that medical services, and we need to find a way to get these people repatriated back to Fort Nelson and pay for that. And I know you've championed that, and I know you've brought that up with Adrian Dix, the Minister of Health, on many occasions. And we've talked about maternity care for women who have to go down for an extended period of time.
All out of their pocket.
All out of their pocket. And so what it means is that if you want to have a child in Fort Nelson, it's going to cost you $7,000-8,000. Not just the wife being in a hotel, but now the husband has to stay home with the toddlers, and he's not earning income. We need to have a system here where these expenses are covered for young families, for seniors, for people who are less able to cover those bills themselves, or we're simply going to watch people do without the medical services that they're entitled to.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that probably the number one issue that I've been fighting on for Fort Nelson, for the entire region since I've got elected. We've been calling for 4 years now and I know that when you were mayor, and the mayor of Fort St. John, and Taylor, the NCLGA, all the mayors across Northern BC are calling for some sort of review of Northern Health, because what's happening right now isn't working. And it's not just Northern Health, it is across the province. So I will continue obviously to advocate for that and make sure things are done. And I know that we've been talking for a long time. So I do want to thank you. Thank you for all that you've done in this community, as well as the mayor, and as not just mayor, as being part of the fabric of Fort Nelson. You've done a ton of stuff up here. So thanks very much.
Well, thanks very much, Dan.
Yeah, appreciate it.